to all of you. I am Kashvika Kashyap, your host for this interesting session, which is part of the Author Award, an initiative brought to you by JK Paper and Times of India. Author Award is a platform to encourage women authors to express their creativity and fondness for writing. It is a celebration of art of storytelling by women writers. This initiative wishes to acknowledge exemplary pieces of writing by women authors to inspire and motivate more women to take up writing, pen that story, and feel proud of their accomplishments. On 29th October this year, Times of India and JK Paper launched Season 5 of Author Awards. Over the last 4+ years, they have seen more than 5,500 entries in various categories from across the country, and more than 70 eminent personalities have gotten associated with the awards journey. Teach India, as you might know, is a corporate social responsibility initiative of the Times of India, working relentlessly since 2011 with children and youth to enhance their skills in the field of education and communication. This initiative is implemented on the ground through the partner NGOs and volunteers. Currently operational in Pan India, their projects are curated and executed by the best educationalists and professionals in their respective fields. Their initiatives include spoken English classes for employable youth, module oral hygiene and road safety, National Payment Corporation of India, Rural Digital Literacy Program, PNG Digital Finance Literacy for Youth, HCL Jigsaw Critical Reasoning Olympiad, Times of Better India Moment Caption Contest, One Word Contest, Tata Salt Har Sawal Utega, Indian Army Quiz Program, HP Fun Worksheets for Children. On that note, let's begin this event. First and foremost, I call upon Ms. Haripriya, SM, to deliver the welcome speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, faculty members, and our literary enthusiasts, a very good morning to all of you. The Literary Mavens, as the name suggests, is a club that thrives on the power of words, the magic of storytelling, and the depth of literary exploration. It serves as a platform for our talented students to express their creativity, share their thoughts, and immerse themselves in the world of literature. The Department of English, under the auspices of Literary Mavens Language and Literary Club, is elated to present to you all a book reading session which is a part of Author Awards, an initiative brought to you by JK Paper and the Times of India. Author Awards is a platform to encourage and acknowledge exemplary pieces of writing by women authors to inspire and motivate more women to take up story writing and feel proud of their accomplishments. Speaking of Teach India, as you might know, it is a corporate social responsibility initiative of the Times of India, working relentlessly since 2011 with children and youth to enhance their skills in the field of education and communication. Today, we are truly honored to have with us all a distinguished individual who has made significant contributions to the world of literature. Our esteemed chief guest for the day is Ms. Rheea Mukherjee. She's a passionate advocate for social justice, animal rights, and mental health awareness. Before we proceed further, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our Madam Principal, Ms. Nagalakshmi BN, and the distinguished guests who have graced us with their presence today. Professor Sharmishta Datta, our Vice Principal, Dr. Anna Danesha, our esteemed Administrative Officer, Professor Aruna, IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Soumya P., the Head of English Department. I request the office bearers to present the tokens of appreciation. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Shilpa ma'am, Mr. Chandrasekhar sir from JK Paper. So, without further ado, let us begin this literary voyage. Thank you once again for joining us, and let's make this day a memorable celebration of literature.
Thank you, Haripriya. Now I'd like to call upon Asta Shetty to introduce our chief guest, Ms. Rheea Mukherjee.
Ms. Rheea Mukherjee is celebrated for her debut author, The Body Myth, which has been shortlisted for the Tata Literature Life First Book Award in 2019. She has been featured in prominent publications such as Los Angeles Times, BuzzFeed, and Electric Literature. Beyond her literary achievements, Rheea also co-founded the Bangalore Writers Workshop in 2012 and Write Leela Write, a design and content laboratory in Bangalore. With a background in social work and an MFA in creative writing, she brings a unique perspective to her writing, drawing from her experiences as a counselor, advocate, and her life split between US and India. Ms. Rheea is not just an author. She's a passionate advocate for social justice, animal rights, and mental health awareness. Her ideologies are firmly rooted in challenging societal norms, pushing for radical kindness, and disrupting the status quo. Her list of accomplishments go on and on. It is truly an honor to be amidst you today, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Asta. It gives me a great pleasure to invite Ms. Shilpa to begin the session. Over to you, ma'am.
So, good morning, everyone here. How are you all? Bored? Okay. So, can we begin? You want to say hi to ma'am?
Hi. Good morning. Good afternoon. Is it afternoon?
No,
good
morning.
Good
15
morning. Good
more
morning.
minutes, yeah. Okay. Okay. A very warm welcome, Rheea, once again. It's a pleasure meeting you. So, shall we begin?
Yes, let's
Okay,
start.
let's start.
start.
Okay, moving ahead, like the first basic question. I believe there is lot of learning, with a person interest. There's lot of learning also associated with that. So how did you realize like you had a passion in writing, and when was your calling? Because since you are of quite a young age.
My first thing I'll tell you all is that I was very bad in school. Terrible. And I was not very confident. The only thing I think I could do was write, but nobody really valued that in school. You have to get certain marks and you have to perform really well in your exams. But I think like after, when I was in my PUC and college, that's when I realized that's something I really wanted to do. But I started writing stories as small as, I think when I was like 10. And really started seriously in my very early 20s.
That's interesting. So you knew like you want to get into writing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how exactly. That I think time also teaches you how you can best use your skills and then, work on certain things. Because writing, I kept doing concurrently on the side, and I studied social work. I worked in I taught writing, I was a counselor. So I've done a lot of other things. I'm branding, communications, but then writing was always on the parallel.
So then a different question here. I'm not digressing, but I just want to know how could you manage all these?
That's a good answer.
Yeah,
Because I don't know, it just depends on how you look at it, right? So I find managing all of things that you like doing or feels like, you're saying something to the world, or you're trying to engage with the world in some kind of meaningful way to you, then it's fine, right? For me, for example, I'm really horrible at sitting like in an office for 8 hours. I can't do that. So I don't know. I ask people like, how do you sit in an office for 8 hours? I can't imagine. So it depends on your perspective, because I need to be either every 2-3 hours doing something, writing something here, and then working on something here, and then hopping from home to an office to a cafe or something like that.
So you like to be busy all the time? Like that is
For certain, yeah.
It's always
good. Yeah. I guess it's really how people look at it, because I'm also exceptionally lazy, I think. I like to sit and watch Netflix. Like I watch Netflix way too much right now. So it depends on how you look at it. But yes, I do a lot of things in a small amount of time. That's what I'm good at, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Great. So let's move on to the next. Yeah. Your novel, which talks about the name, The Girl Who Kept Falling in Love Again and Again. So the name itself says it's about something related to love, but it is not the case. So how could you think of such a name? Because it adds a lot of curiosity here.
So I think this I mean, listen, we're in a women's college here, so I think a lot of will look at this title and you will associate it with, most people associate, it's not about anyone, that it's with romantic love. Of course there's a romantic love. But one thing that I try to talk about in this book is that it is not a rom-com. A lot of people expect it to be a romantic comedy or something. It's not. It is actually looking at love in a larger way, in the way that we communicate with the world. So, for example, I would to say that if you are constantly growing and challenging yourself and making yourself aware of your own biases, your own issues, you're trying to integrate yourself in a meaningful way in a world that can be very toxic sometimes, right? The outside world that you have to integrate with. So if you can bring meaning and grow, that means you are actually probably going to fall in love with a lot of things as you grow as a person, whether that's people, things, platforms, passions. You're going to keep falling in love because why? Because you're growing. You're not stagnant. You're not staying in one worldview. You're challenging yourself. Therefore, falling in love will have to be a repeated thing in your life.
That's interesting, isn't it, students? Are you all there? Okay, good. So this book then eventually it's different from your earlier book again. So how was the entire treatment done? I mean, how did you think of giving a different name, a different story altogether?
So, I mean, this book was actually inspired by a lot of things, right? So, there's a lot of activism in this book. It's about an activist who lived, who was American Indian, but then lived most of her adult life in India. And stood for a lot of causes and is very worried about the state of India and has lots of critique for America as well. So there's a lot of political commentary in this book that kind of, I mean, allows the reader to look at it from however they wish to. But I think definitely there are themes of mental health, queerness, how you look at love, and just the secular nature of our country and how that's diminishing.
Interesting. So while you're writing this book, was there any moment of doubt, because you're catering to a niche audience? Yeah. So was there any doubt in your mind?
Yeah. I mean, yes, because it's like, I think only a few people will be, I mean, there are two things, right? Yes, so if you read it, not everybody's going to be interested or they think, oh, there's just a lot of activism stuff here or there's a lot of political stuff here. But I hope to make it more accessible and for people, for readers to see a part of themselves in it. That's the hope. And yet, because of the characteristics of the book, it will typically, technically attract a niche audience. But I'm hoping that if anybody picks up the book, they can find something that they can relate to.
Okay, you can relate.
Yeah, whether or not, yeah, because I feel like my book brings out a lot of things that when we are culturally taught to be quiet and shut up about. So that's it.
Very true. Okay. So at this point, can I just request you to read an excerpt from the book?
Yeah, sure. I do very short readings because I don't like to bore people. Because I have gone to run readings and I don't like when other authors just keep reading on and on. So I'm not going to bore you guys. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to read like literally two and a half pages that are about the main character in this book. And her name is Kaya. Okay. And she's just talking a little bit about her present life. Now this book goes in and out of different timelines and all that stuff. So I've tried to pick out something that at least you'll get some context. My life has been a series of fractured identities. I don't know how to patch it together in a marketable way for my friends, lovers, or even jobs. Each identity has infused secrets. Others have untangled them. I did things a bubble of urban Indians would relate to. I complained about the traffic. I visited coffee shops to meet friends. I had a small car I drove occasionally, but parking and navigating the expanding sea of buses, autos, and two-wheelers exhausted me. So I ended up taking autos all the time. Sometimes I cooked, but I also had a cook, Sarita, who came thrice a week and made me my favorite batch of dal and veggies. I'd eat it for 2 straight days, sometimes with brown rice to feel healthier. Sarita was quick in and out in 90 minutes. She had only one thing to say to me. She said she wanted me to eat white rice because white rice tastes the best. She hated when I would waste her dal on brown rice. When she decided to talk, she'd tell me about a lover she had taken. And she said I seemed like the type who would never judge her because I was old and had chosen never to marry. Sarita had an elderly mother who had given up on Sarita ever getting married. She was an excellent cook, and urban India loved domestic services because the nation could drastically underpay domestic workers. She made enough money, though, to distract her mom from marrying her off. This was because Sarita also had a YouTube channel where she talked about South Indian TV serials. The channel had blown up in less than a year. Together, the money she made from YouTube and her cooking in a few houses were more than any of the men available for marriage. Sarita was the only person I consistently had in my house over the last few years. She didn't know how much about my personal life. Only that I was a strange lady whose family lived far away, a funny but quiet lady who spent too much time on her laptop. On some evenings, when I'd watch an old Hindi movie instead of a Netflix show, Sarita would stay longer, watch the movie with me, and tell me each time, before meeting you, I never watched a Hindi movie. I only like Kannada and Tamil films. What I think of men comes from Hindi movies, though. Mostly, I was taught to suppress any excitement that automatically arouses when I saw Salman Khan in close proximity to Bhagyashree in the 1989 movie Maine Pyar Kiya, the first Bollywood movie I ever watched and subsequently was obsessed with for most of my preteen years. No one explicitly told me to suppress the feelings. But when I saw Salman longingly look at Bhagyashree, I knew instinctively it was no good. The only way to interact with such content was to watch it with celebration while simultaneously knowing the intricacies of love, romance, and sex were not to be dissected. This I was taught by the silence of my parents. It's something you don't engage with. You have to realize why tight-lipped discomfort is passed on every generation. Silence has long proven its ability to help our parents survive the world until now. This has been enough for them, even if it might have killed off entire parts of them. This was an acceptable cost. Silence for survival.
That was amazing. And it is so real, it has been connected with, our lives, isn't it, students? I don't know how many of you watched that movie also when she... real, maybe they have seen that once in their lifetime. Oh, see, so many hands up, see? I'm impressed. Exactly. So it just takes back to your old days, right? Yeah, interesting. Very fantastic. Okay. Shall we go to the next question? Okay. So generally when writers start writing, there are a lot of things you put into, there are many things getting along together. Like, doing the research, going through case studies, and then, bringing in so many things, weaving all things together. So how could you do that? How did that happen here?
So I started writing short stories, and then this is my second novel, right? The Girl Who Kept Falling in Love. The first novel was The Body Myth. If you look at all of my work, though, most of my work has been most interested in the realities of urban India. And why? Because I feel like I'm fair to that subject, and I can do the research within that metrics, right? Even then, there's a lot that I have to side study. Like I was telling you in my first novel, there's a character in the book who is obsessed with French philosophers and existential theory. I had no clue about it, but I had decided my character was going to be obsessed with these things. So for 2 months, I had to take off and just research French philosophers and existential philosophers and study them, understand what they said, so that my character could sound believable. Right? Like she's somebody who is obsessive about them. She knows, so like how would that character talk and feel and, express themselves about what they thought. And now, like, that book was written in 2019 it came out. If you ask me a question now about French philosophers, I know very superficial things right now. I've forgotten because because that is something, it didn't naturally come to me. It's something that I did. So there are things you'll have to go out of your comfort zone to do the best for your character.
Oh, so there needs to be, I mean, you can do these.
You can do it. It's
yeah,
just
you
that
can
it's
just
not natural. It's
trial
not a
and-
natural, like, you know,
natural
you have a
process.
natural affinity for certain things that come to your mind. French philosophy is not one of them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what. So you have to do a lot of research
Yeah.
there. Yeah, and it's really very interesting because you're touching upon many other relevant topics like this. To be frank, Hindu-Muslim relationships.
Yeah.
You know, the class divide.
The class
to
divide,
a large
caste
extent,
divide,
yeah,
yeah.
and the LGBT community.
Yeah.
And you know the citizens who have been born and bred in
Yeah, yeah.
US and then settled in India.
Yeah.
So how could you manage all these things? Touching upon those
So
relevant topics.
I'll tell
one
you
after the
why.
other.
That's a really good question, and I think the most important thing is, like, you have all of you are like this future starting generation, right? And we're all coming from generations where somehow a lot of things are not. It's obvious, but it's not discussed in society. So whether you're talking about feelings, you're talking about religion, caste, class, all of these things are operating and obviously benefiting very few people, and leaving the rest of us to fight about it or divide ourselves about it. So there is a system of oppression that works in every country in different ways, operated on class, religion, resources. So it's up to you to find yourself in the world and understand these things and stop being silent about it. Our previous generations have done that. I also come from, I'm a millennial generation. I'm turned 40 this year, yeah, we were 23, yeah, this year.
This year, okay.
So I'm like what people call geriatric millennials.
Very true.
So, but even my own generation was caught between these both worlds of, just if you toe the line and you don't say anything that's different, or you don't challenge anything in the system, then you're just going to sustain the same thing. So it's really hard, because even as women, you will be like told to second guess yourself, but you have to have an opinion, and you have to start having the courage to say it even if you're wrong. You be open to learning and relearning how the world is going to teach you things. Be open to that, but you're going to start to have that courage, because nobody is going to give you that courage. Nobody. The world's not built for it. It is not built in your best interest. It's not. And that's time we talked about that.
Yeah, please. Yes, it's a valid point what she said. So the courage, you say it's very important. So can we develop that in the later stages also? I suppose it's a personal question because it's a girl's college.
Yeah.
I thought.
I think you can develop it at any age. It doesn't matter. One is just that one thing. I mean, I obviously wanted for more and more young people to feel that, because I think when you're like ages 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, even your 20s, you spend so much of wasted time just guessing, like,
Yes.
oh, am I doing this correct? Am I doing this? And then you get into your 30s and realize, wait, everybody's been pretending. Nobody's really known what it is to be an adult. There's no
Exactly.
such thing. Everybody's just walking into adulthood as cluelessly as you feel that. If you feel adults are anything that are like super got it together, no. There's no secret sauce. People are just walking into it. So that's why you have time to decide what you want to be in this world. But yes, you can. I think you can. I think once you see it
Yes.
and you feel that spark,
Yes.
it just changes you. And it's not like overnight, but
takes time.
you are going to just keep doing something.
But we have to, as you
different.
said, we have to keep doing something.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to keep challenging yourself.
Exactly. Well, it was very interesting. Something out of the topic I just thought of asking. I'm sorry.
Thank you for asking that.
So can we, may I request you to read one of the excerpts from the book, maybe with your favorite character or the favorite part of the book, which you would like?
I'll read a part that I had chosen about, I think, college love.
Uh-huh.
It's like in chapter 3. So not necessarily my favorite part, but just a part
Oh, is it?
of the
Okay,
book of
no
the
issues.
Kaya. Of Kaya talking about when she was 23. Because in the book she's about in her 40s. Okay. I must admit that I have fallen in love a lot. Some might say it's not really love if you keep going from one person to the next. But I like to think of it as a constant evolution of love. Sometimes the passage of time allows me to see myself better. When I was 23, I fell in love with a man from Eritrea. He had lived the first 6 years of his life there. The rest was mostly in a small town in Utah, where his parents ran a real estate business. I met him 2 years before I moved back to India. At the time, my mother was having a cancer scare, or rather, a cancer reality. Thankfully, one of the kinder varieties that went into remission quickly and was never heard from again, even today. Every morning during the cancer scare months, I would throw an old brown pullover and jeans, put my hair half up, and make a 20-minute trek to the Starbucks that was next to the King Soopers grocery market. Every day, he'd be there in the same spot with a small laptop and a grande iced coffee, talking in a language I had never heard before. I would later learn that these were phone calls to his mother, and the language he was speaking was Tigrinya. For the longest time, our relationship's heart was based on basking in finding our cultures the same, but so different. I had begun adding a smear of lipstick to my ensemble after I noticed Jonas. I liked to watch the tiny bubbles of water form over his cup. I would measure his drinking speed by the lifeless melting ice floating on the surface of his coffee. It was inevitable that he would eventually catch me staring. One day, he looked directly at me, indicated at his coffee with his large right hand, smiled and raised his eyebrow at me. He was saying something, but I couldn't really make out what. I raised my eyebrows back at him. You want my coffee or something? The way you've been staring at it. I covered my hot face with my hands, looked up, and saw that he was laughing. I went over to his table and saw that he had glowing, perfect skin. I looked him in the eye and told him I had noticed him every day and that it was enough for me to imagine his life. I don't know where I found the confidence to do that. He was easy to talk to, too easy. Jonas was the first person I felt at home with. Many people say things like this when they fall in love. When I say it, I mean that I always wanted to be around him. Whether he was folding his laundry or reading a book, he was chattering with his, or if he was chattering with his mother, that was my lullaby. I'd take afternoon naps on his bed. As he turned to me, his phone balanced against his ears with no hands. His ignorance and potential for fascination with my world of Bollywood allowed me to share with him my deepest exoticized tropes of hope and love. I'd play Mar Dala on YouTube and watch his reaction. He responded coolly as if it was an expected Britney Spears song being played at the club. He tapped his feet and then looked at the video, the parrot green-decked Madhuri Dixit. That's dope, he'd say. And I'd went on and with my playlist, Dil To Pagal Hai, Tujhe Dekha To Ye Jana Sanam. We talked about immigration. He didn't remember much, but his parents had seen much of the war before Eritrea's independence in 1991. Some of his extended family had gone to Sudan, but his family had managed to make it to Utah. They didn't know a scratch of English, but they learned and they thrived. He asked me how my parents spoke English so well. At the time, I switched to the old American, so little of the world you know, syndrome. I explained that Indians not knowing English was a myth, and that we spoke several languages, and one of them was certainly not Hindu, which in fact is a religion. Remember, we were colonized by the British? In any case, at 22, I had still not understood that class and caste had colonized my country before the British. That yes, a large number of people in India certainly spoke English, but statistically, it was only 15%. And the percentage of those who could use English to pass as educated, cool, and savvy were even less. However, it was still a large number. But the number mostly represented people who were aware of their heritage, but not aware there was a systematic benefit. They had a systematic benefit to access better education, acquire wealth, feel entitled to the American dream, and then pretend that class and caste didn't exist.
Very interesting, yeah. So, it was again so connected, you know. I could just go back in my young days. I mean, very interesting. So, Rheea, how long did you take to write this book, this second book of yours?
This book I wrote during the pandemic. So 2020, 21, 22.
Oh.
And yeah, because there was a lot of editing in 2022.
Is
and
it?
Then, yeah.
So approximately 2.5 years?
2.5 years, this one, yeah.
Okay, that's nice. So at this point of time, can we just start with some questions?
Yeah, I'd love to answer
Yeah,
any
that
questions
is,
or
I
talk or
think-
discuss anything
yes,
with you.
that would be better. So if you could just open the Q&A sessions now. Students, I mean, can we take this? Shortage of mics.
Anybody has questions? Okay.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi.
I'm Ananya Venadik from BSc Botany and Biochemistry. So I have a little question regarding that. How Kaya has, I mean, in the first story, I didn't understand that how Kaya has read that Bollywood movie called Maine Pyar Kiya.
How she's watched it?
Yes, ma'am.
She's watched it. Didn't you watch Hindi movies when you were growing up? I grew up with Hindi movies.
Uh, because even I also love watching Bollywood movies,
Yeah.
ma'am. Now, I mean, in this generation.
Yeah.
So even I love watching Bollywood movies, like this kind of movies. Kaya had watched Maine Pyar Kiya, so I have got to know more about it. I've heard the movie.
Movie
ma'am.
name, right? And it's
Then-
probably because also it's more relate. It was a popular movie, especially for my generation growing up. Everybody would have heard of it when we were growing up. But yes, Bollywood, I mean, my character has a lot of love for Bollywood. There was a lot of inspiration, but also detangling what Bollywood taught her and what the real world is part of the narrative.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
I'm Sneha.
Hi, Sneha.
What advice would you give for people whose creativity has fizzled out?
It's not fizzled out. It's just that life circumstances or it's hard, and you are going to feel defeated sometimes. It'll come back. You have to trust that it'll come back, and that you have to keep yourself open and vulnerable to the world for you to feel it. A lot of people don't understand that creativity is really got to do with a lot of feeling and passion and this need to express, right? And that's what you can, I mean, over time you can fine tune your craft and make it better and better. But the initial thing is to feel, and so if you're feeling something, you will be inspired by something, a thought, an idea, a person, anything. So just trust it'll come back. There's no such thing as permanent fizzled out.
Ma'am, any theme that personally resonates with you?
Too many. If you too many.
Any few you can name so we can be acquainted with it?
So generally, I'm really interested to talk about certain themes like mental health, which I think affects all of us, right? And I'm also really interested in how we look at a world that is more fair in a place where it's so extremely unequal. So looking at that, I have to look at things like feminism, gender rights, even this idea that gender is just this one spectrum of man and woman. You have to look beyond about all these things. So for me, these are the things that I think are all connected. When you look at human rights, you look at animal rights, you look at the way people treat each other, and look at mental health, I see lots of dots and connections. So a lot of my work is making those connections with the dots and writing about that.
Anyone else? Okay. Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
I'm Ramya. I'm BA. My question is to you, what are the challenges one faces in the artistic pursuit?
Yeah, lots.
Can you please name them, ma'am?
Yeah, we'll name them. So first thing is, people, we say things like artistic pursuits or whatever. I mean, basically, unfortunately, a lot of the work that we might feel that is personally meaningful and it can actually change the way the world works or does things, right? Teaching is one of them. I was just discussing with one of your professors. For example, it is sad that we are still in a system like this, we're dependent on individual professors or teachers to change our life, right? So, not the system itself. So, it really depends on what you want to do in this world. The first thing is be clear about yourself first. That's the hardest thing to do. People will tell you, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to be like this, you have to be that. You figure out first what you want to be, what you want to do. That stuff will evolve over time. But I think the biggest challenge to you is going to be your own self-doubt. That's always the challenge, right? And then the second thing is, do you have the courage to withstand some of the ups and downs? Because it doesn't matter if you are a doctor or a computer engineer, or you say that you're always going to have ups and downs in lives. So even if you've chosen a different path, you have to have that courage.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. My name is Archita.
Hi, Asita.
Can I have you talk about your first book, The Body Myth? Because the name suggests a lot.
The body myth actually is actually a very different story. It's about a woman who had lost her husband very early in life, and a very radical relationship and obsession she has with this chronically ill woman and her husband. And it's about philosophy. It's also about, it is also about mental health and grief, and how grief is for me connected to a lot of freedom. Because imagine when people go through a horrible like thing that makes you feel horrible and grief stricken, you lose someone, or your life is pulled out from under you, right? It also gives you the freedom to be or do anything you want, because you don't care. In those moments of grief, you don't care what society thinks. Why? So it takes that much pain for you not to care what society thinks.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, what advice would you like to give those who are scared to follow their passion?
That's a good question. There's a lot. I mean, I could write an essay on this, but the first thing I tell you is, it's not unnatural for you to be scared to follow your passion, because like I just said, the world is set up for you to be scared. The world is set up for you not to trust yourself completely. It is set up for you to trust larger systems and the way people have, people as human beings, we don't question things. If we see our parents or other generations do something, whatever, we just copy it, or we just do it. We go into life without asking too many questions. So some of it is great, right? That's based on our survival. But some of it absolutely makes zero sense. And that you have to start seeing the ridiculousness of that in your own head. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you start seeing it, you will automatically have more courage to walk on that path. But all I can remind you is that every time you fundamentally doubt yourself on something that you know you want to instinctually do or learn or be, and as long as your mind and heart is open, right, to learning and being challenged, then remember the world is not, it's purposely not set up for you that way. That should give you, that's the only thing that you can have to keep doing to encourage yourself. That's what I have to tell myself too, right now, even today when I'm doing things. So.
Anyone else? Oh, okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
So my question is, can you tell a little bit more about your new book? Can you tell a little bit more about your new book?
Oh, this book, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so it is about this woman, Kaya, and there are some protests going on in the country, and she falls in love with somebody. And I mean, I can't give away the whole plot, but through this central plot of this one person she falls in love with, and that changes her life and all that, you go through a historic life assessment of Kaya's, where she's been, what she's done, how she's come to be, and how her life is led up to this one moment that is going to make her do something very, very unethical, and that's something that she herself thought she was never capable of doing.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
My question was like, how is writing helping you personally, and how to stand out if we write? Because there are already so many perspectives, and if I come up with something and if I search it up, there's already so much about it. So,
Yeah.
like, how do I stand out, and how is writing helping you?
So two things, that's a great question. One is, yeah, there is so much already written, and there is not, so one thing is to come into the world thinking, you're not going to invent a new topic. You're not going to invent a new story. Everything that has been there in our collective human history has already been done. What matters is your take on it. That's what you have to think. What is your take on it? That's what will set you apart, A. Two, you asked another secondary question, which was? Writing helps me because it allows me to make sense of the world. It actually makes me more confident in, there are things that, that you imbibe every day, but you're not able to articulate. And that's the time where when I sit down and write, I can allow my characters to do that. I can allow my story, I can direct my story in ways that things that I want to say that can be, out there in the story. So it helps me make sense of my world. I also think it's interrelated to what your take on it is, what your lens is on the subject, on the topic, whatever your story is, even if it's non-fiction. It doesn't matter even if you're doing an essay on, on technology. It still matters what is your take on it, what intelligent or compassionate or interesting thing are you saying about it, and not just repeating stuff, because we can do that right now on AI also, right, with chat box. So we can say, write an essay on any person. What's your take on it? That'll set you apart. And have the courage to do that.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
I am Emuna Mastoor Ahmed. And my question is, how can an artist develop their practical side, which is proven to be very important?
Yeah, so your practical side, you mean like how do you make a living? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah, so I can't make a living of writing just by itself. So I've always had a side career, which has been, in the last 10 years, it's been branding, communications. Because I'm good, so if you're good, say you have a good talent, right, in terms of you can draw really well, or you're a great graphic designer, or you can think visually. For me, it's like, okay, I can write, but that means I'm also really good at communicating with people. I'm also really good at coming up with, I don't know, like branding, advertising, one-liners and stuff like that. So I apply those skills to the commercial world so that I can sustain myself. But you have to have again, it's not traditional. I've never taken up a real traditional job. I've always done freelancing, or I've taught, or I've worked. Right now, I'm actually working in a company, but I have flexibility. But I do branding. So figure out how your core skills can be applied to the world in different ways. And you're also getting into a different economy now, as even India is going through it. So it'll really be about how you maneuver your skills to be something that is valuable or different, right? Not just taking a job for the job's sake. That's not going to unnecessarily fulfill you unless you're getting some kind of thing out of it and you're able to contribute something in the world with it.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Priya.
Hi.
I want to know, who is your favorite author or artist and why?
So that keeps changing, but there is a author who wrote non-fiction, and her pen name was Bell Hooks, and she wrote about love, but love as an act of political resistance. So it's a very different idea of what love is and what love means in action in the everyday. And there's a book called All About Love by Bell Hooks, and I highly recommend a lot of young people read that book.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, what piece of advice would you give for the people who are getting interested in writing?
First of all, write and look up other writers and read. Read a variety of things, even things that make you feel bored or uncomfortable, just to get a sense of what is out there, the length and breadth of writing, right? Because writing is a very large word. It really depends on what you want to be as a writer and how you want to go there. Do you want to be a journalist? Do you want to say something about a particular part of the world? Do you want to talk about fashion? Do you want to talk about politics? What do you want to do? What's that element you want to bring to it? There has to be something that you are seeing out there that you're like, yeah, but I wish people would talk about it in this way. And that's where you're going to find your, you'll find your track. And find a community. Find people who uplift you, find people who support you and support others. That is very important.
Hi, ma'am. As you said, the main character's idea of love was quite different when you read about the line. I mean, my mom's favorite movies are Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, Maine Pyar Kiya and everything. So the idea of love is quite flowers and butterflies. So I want to know, is it really like that? For a woman in 40s? Yeah, I agree.
Never like that, yeah. I mean, that is something we get. That's a great little part of life, glamorization and fun and stuff like that. And there are crazy, beautiful things about falling in love as well. It's just that you have to remember that there's a larger system against you. That love is meant to keep you also, the flowery version of love is meant to keep you distracted from a lot of general things you can do in the world. I'm saying I love Bollywood, but I'm saying that's not it. That's not the whole thing.
Even my mom is like in her 40s, so even she keeps saying that we used to think it was all flowers and when we were at your age, but you are quite mature for your age, so that feels nice.
Thank you for saying I'm quite mature for a 40-year-old. That's an amazing statement.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
This is Rheea.
Hi.
So my question is, any book made you think a lot, or you got so involved in the book that you forgot the world, or something very different topic which you learned?
So I mean, I would say like books, because technology has changed us so much, right? Like our attention span has changed. So like when I was your age, we didn't have phones like this. we had TV, yes, but we couldn't just spend hours of time like that. So literally books and reading other things were a form of escape. It doesn't hit that note right now because we're so distracted with how we take information. But yeah, even then there are books that, like I said, All About Love by Bell Hooks. My other favorite book that I give to anyone above the age of 13 or 14 whenever I meet them as a gift is Persepolis by, it's a graphic novel by Marijane Satrapi, and it's about a girl going during the Iranian Revolution. And it's a beautiful story and very human story, very, very beautiful.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Ma'am, my question to you is, you're an established writer right now, and everybody at some point of their life has imposter syndrome. Have you had it? And if you have, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think, so first of all, yes, I have it all the time. I don't like it, just me. But also I don't take myself that seriously. I think a lot of people take themselves way too seriously, and that's another problem that people have, is that they're not down to earth. Like, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and if you can see the lightness in that, and not take yourself seriously, then you can connect with more people. So established doesn't really mean anything to me unless I'm able to have an impact or actually make some connection or make the world better than I remember it. So, like I said, with titles and hierarchies, I think people start taking themselves a bit too seriously. I find that a bit funny.
That is a new outlook, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon. I'm Gagana. So my question is that a lot of people say art is just art. It's for the sake of art. And some people say art is political. It has real-life practical implications on day-to-day lives. So I would want to ask what your opinion is on that debate. Since you use a lot of Bollywood references in your books, and since that debate is going around with the more recent Bollywood films, what is your take on that?
Everything's political. So art is political, everything is political. Us sitting in a room right here is political. How is it political? I mean, let's think of these ways, the way it's political, right? Only a certain class of people get rights to be in a college like this. Yes or no? It's political. That's also a political factor. Who gets access to education? How do you get access to education? What kind of education are you getting? That's political as well. Everything is political. Art is 100% political because it's an expression of the world that we're living in.
Thank you, ma'am. I had another question. My other question is, some people say, write what you know about, write what you're already well versed with. And others say, do more research, foray into things that you're not aware about. And you already said, you mentioned, you did a lot of research into French philosophers. So my question is, what do you actually choose to write about? How do you know what you want to write about? There's a lot of advice going around, so what do you pick and what do you leave?
So I think people say, write what you know about because, yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? Because there's a certain worldview and a lens that you have occupied and you're writing about that. I don't think it's wrong to write about what you don't know as long as you research it, but I also don't believe in taking up voices where people are not represented enough and taking up their space for their voice. Because I feel everybody and every type of person should be able to tell their stories. So I'm very careful about the lens that I write with. When I say lens, I'm saying I understand the things that, my privileges and non-privileges that I've had. I've also been able to see how people in my worldview suffer or don't suffer according to me. So within that lens, I write. And if there's something new I need to learn, I will research it. So it's just like, it just really depends on your spectrum, right? Like if you're writing a science fiction book and you're talking about a weird revolution going on in another planet, I mean, then your research, and it depends on how accurate you want to make it to plausible science or non-plausible science. Is just like completely out of that. Just like that's the decision you'll make as a writer. And if you're writing a love story about that in that different planet, is the love story the same thing as humans view love, or is it going to be something different? Again, that's a decision you will make as a writer. So that's the way you need to look at it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Medha. Ma'am, I've been a fan of your works. I've read a couple of interviews, and you'd given one interview for the Los Angeles Review of Books, where you spoke about how often psychosomatic pain is written off as being in your head, and you said that the burden of rationality comes with the burden of ego, and how we have a dismissive tone of the word placebo.
Yes.
Ma'am, I wanted to know, when you're dealing with these really heavy societal issues, how do you, as a writer, make sure that you're not imposing any personal bias on your readers?
So I try to keep it open-ended. So like, for example, there might be a lot of worldviews, even in this book and the last book, that I might identify with. But my characters are always fallible. As in, they do very weird things that I think are universally like, that's weird, or that's not cool. So I think that's the way I try to be fair to it, is that whatever we are, or however right or wrong we think, we're all fallible as humans. We're all as vulnerable. We're all as vulnerable. That's literally that. So that's what I try to do. That's the only thing I can do. And also, I also have to have some conviction in my worldview, because that is what makes you a writer. So you can disagree with it, you can hate it, or you can love it, or you can agree with parts of it. But that is the point of being a writer also, is to bring in conviction in certain things that you want to bring up.
Ma'am, and one last question. So as a writer, you're going to have a certain voice in your head about your characters. So, but if your books are going to be made into an audiobook and somebody else is reading it, do you feel that that kind of distorts the voice of the character in your head?
It can, depends on who's reading it, but I mean, see, I don't know, because audiobooks, I guess, is the new thing, right? A lot of people are doing audiobooks. I let it go in my head, because I think when I've written my book, I've written my book. That's my art. Now, how people want to interpret it or read it or even turn it into a script later on, right? Cross my fingers. but if that happens, then okay, I've done my art here. This is my expression of it. How other people need to interpret it or do it or say it is like, I mean, I will be touchy if they do like you know, what, like if there's a crap job done, I will say that's just crappy. But then if you're getting into just general thing, it's just like, it's subjective. So I let it go. I don't get too emotionally attached to that.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
I have a question as well, ma'am. Ma'am, with your background in psychology, how has that helped you in writing?
It just helps me in so many ways, because it allows you to look at the basic way we are motivated as humans, right? And then how easily we are all influenced by certain ideas and norms and stuff like that, and how that impacts our lives so much. What we think is so normal every day, every one of us, all of us, impacts our life in huge, huge ways. And I think we're just getting to a space where we're able to like study that and understand that for our lives. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm very much an online person, guys. You can follow me on Instagram. I respond to DMs. So if you have questions or concerns or anything else, you can also follow me there. I can't shut up on Instagram. So.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Tanmay.
Hi.
When you had released your first book, how did you feel? Like,
Yeah, it was quite amazing. Like when it finally happened, because it was like so many years and years. It was unreal. And then it just suddenly happens, and then you're like, oh, like it's quite amazing.
it got you into writing, like after it.
I mean, I was writing for years and years before that, but finally to get a book published takes a while. A lot of rejection, and you have to face a lot of rejection.
So thank you so much. And one last question, like how many years, I mean, is it very easy to publish a book, or you will have to face rejections in the beginning, and how exactly the process goes?
Yeah, there's a lot of rejection in writing. Even if you're writing articles or short stories or plan to write a book of short stories or novel, traditional publishing is highly competitive. It is a lot of rejection. You have to know what you're writing, how you're writing. My first book was rejected 45 times, The Body Myth, before it was published. 45
times.
And then it got published both in the US and with Penguin in India. So it paid off. But 45 times. I know a lot of writers who get rejected 3 or 4 times and bas ho gaya. They're like, I'm not going to be a writer, I'll do something else.
Yeah.
So if that's the thing, then you will, you have to be consistent. So one, you have to know what you're good at and what you really want to bring to the world. Have that confidence, know what you're doing, bring in some craft to your work, and then you have to be consistent and persistent.
Very interesting, amazing. And 45 times is not a big, I mean, it's really a big time problem, and when you kind of lose motivation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes,
it's very easy
I mean, it's very easy to lose.
I think I was like stubborn.
You are stubborn, yeah, exactly. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For joining us today. And also, before we end, some motivational lines for our budding writers, some words of encouragement.
I said so many motivational things.
One more
didn't I say?
time, last
One
one more
thing.
time,
No, really, like I really want everybody in the room to know that to be yourself is the biggest gift you can have in this world. Unfortunately, you don't spend a lot of time being yourself. You spend most of your time imitating others or feeling insecure about certain things or feeling like, oh, I won't do that because other people are not doing that.
Exactly.
You spend so little time being yourself, and that is the tragedy we all suffer from. So the faster you understand that, the more, like you'll save 10, 15 years that I didn't have, if you can get that in your heads today. Because I spent 10, 15 years, thinking that, which you can save yourself from faster.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for being here. And thank you, the English department and this MLAC College for giving us an opportunity to interact with you people. It was amazing to have interaction with you, and we'll be keeping in touch base with you for the upcoming projects as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shilpa, so much for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for that illuminating and wonderful session, ma'am. I now call upon Pranati Chincholi to propose the word of thanks.
I want to express my sincere thanks to everyone who attended this captivating book reading session. A special appreciation to our talented author for sharing their literary work and engaging us in thought-provoking discussions. Gratitude also extends to our audience, organizers, and any contributors who made this event memorable. Let the love for books and storytelling continue to unite us. Thank you for being a part of this enriching experience.